Hi, I'm back. This is part 2. So, like I was saying, when you were born here at home. And when you were born, one of the midwives were pulling on my placenta cord, and it made me hemorrhage. Of course, it may have something to do with a piece of placenta that was still stuck in there. We're not sure to this day. But I started bleeding and hemorrhaging and dying. And Baron quickly called our home teachers, and both of them lived nearby, and they came over and they all gave me a priesthood blessing. Of course, by then I was unconscious. But Baron tells me they gave me a priesthood blessing, and my bleeding stopped. And the doctors at the hospital were amazed. They said, "Your bleeding stopped before you ever got here." They were amazed I was alive. They said, "You've lost over half your blood, but we're not going to give you transfusion. We will give you lots of intravenous liquid or water, saline, and hope that your body will build its own blood supply back up." Sure enough, I did. Anyway, that's probably why you bonded with your dad and Alma much more than me. Maybe this first day that you were spending with them when you were first born. But that's okay. I got to see you a few hours later. Now, let me think about where I was on the story. I wanted you to know at that time that not only were you, or Austin, born under the LDS covenant, meaning Baron and I had covenanted in the LDS temple to live righteous lives, but you had been born also under the temple covenant. And you came into an LDS family as a spirit boy. You were pleased to be an LDS child, a child who would grow up with LDS teachings, because the LDS Church, I'm not calling it a religion so much as it has a lot of truth and a lot of happiness and light and knowledge to be found in this world. Sure, there's many religious people that become very dogmatic, and they're not perfect, but I don't look to the people for truth and light. I look to God, and then I go to sources that have truth and light. And the LDS Church does have a lot of truth and light that will bring you safety and peace also. So, at that time, soon we moved to Manti, and I became pregnant with Michael. Now, this was a shock to Baron and I, because I was pregnant like 9 months after you were born, and I was kind of surprised. I was a little worried because I didn't want you to grow up without a lot of attention as a baby, but I figured God had things, planned. And right in the middle of my pregnancy, Michael's development had stopped, and it was right about the time that Baron and I got excommunicated from the LDS Church. Baron was more than happy to not go to church because it didn't fit in his busy schedule and his goal of being a millionaire. He admitted to that. I was a little sad about it, and I felt something was wrong. But I figured Heavenly Father would work it all out. Now, hindsight, I'm looking back and seeing why Heavenly Father blessed me with that excommunication, because it affords people the opportunity that if Heavenly Father already knows that they're going down a path of destruction, then they're not going to be held accountable for a lot of promises and covenants that they had made to Heavenly Father. Looking back now, I understand that the excommunication was a great blessing in my life. I wish I'd never had gone to that point, of course, but I see Heavenly Father's mercy in that. When Michael died, Baron and I really had a difficult time keeping our marriage together. I really felt the need to move on and come back to Heavenly Father no matter what. And that, whether that included Baron or not, I don't know, but I didn't think it was going to include Baron, because he made his clear choice of not wanting to go the same way I was going. So, with having 2 little children and so much at stake, Baron talked me into staying in the marriage, and I decided if I was going to stay in the marriage that I needed a child, even though he didn't want any more children. I asked him if I could have a baby because Michael had died, and he said of course. So 5 months later I was pregnant with Jacob. Now, when Jacob was conceived, I thought to Heavenly Father, I was praying one day to Heavenly Father, and He said, and I said, I don't understand why Heavenly Father, that you want me to have another child. I know I want another child, but what about Barron? What about his desire to not be a father much to this child? And Heavenly Father assured me that He had a spiritual father for Jacob and that I should trust in him. Well, hindsight now I understand, because now I am with a man who is more than happy to be a spiritual father for all of my boys, no matter what father they came from. Rudy's a very spiritual man, and he is not wanting to replace Barron, but he's wanting to be there for all of you boys if you and Heavenly Father want him to be there for you. So, at that time, Barron Holler, your dad, began to have an affair with a woman named Lori Pinckney, a good friend of ours. They were writing love letters to each other and things like that, and he deeply loved her, and she's the one who actually told me all about it. And at first I was really shocked, but then as I prayed to Heavenly Father about it, I had the most overwhelming peace and love come over my heart, that it was all good and all well, that Barron move on and be with a woman who he felt deep connection to and a deep love for. And that would release me from any commitments or covenants that I had with Barron. And as much as this heavenly peaceful feeling came over me, my fears in my mind took over. Being pregnant, having a low self-esteem, and seeing that my family could be destroyed, I then talked to Barron and asked him if this was going to be that he has a relationship with Lori. I'm not going to live polygamy with him, that he would have to choose either me and my children or her. Well, with this, Barron really wanted both of us, but he said, well, if the choice be, then I would be with you and my kids. But then he wanted and begged for months to talk me into having this other woman as his wife and having me. But I was not interested in polygamy, and it's not a part of me, so I was not interested. So at that time, let me think here. At that time, when Jacob was born, the very next morning, Barron invited or told me that he was going to invite my sister Suzanne my cousin Tammy into our marriage as a plural marriage, as a polygamy. And I was too weak physically and emotionally and spiritually. I was just so grateful to have a baby in my arms that I said, do whatever you feel you need to do. And he asked my cousin, and she said no. Then he asked my sister Suzanne, and she said no. And as shocked as I was really grateful that they said no, because it wasn't really a part of me. Well, with all this having gone wrong and just kind of blowing up in Barron's face, he decided that having no religion in his life, he would go after this another way. And I say this now because hindsight obviously is 20/20, and I didn't know this, but now I can look back and see that really he had a sexual desire to have to be immoral, and or maybe he should have just moved on and been married to a woman that he felt love for I wasn't fulfilling him. And I could see that when he talked about Lori, the love he had, and that I was not going to be the woman that would bring out that part of him. So let's not blame him or me. Let's just say what it is. We were both insecure, both, not sure of ourselves, and so continued to stay in the relationship because we didn't want to lose what we did have. Instead of trusting God and realizing that good things could happen if we moved on and did what was right. I know that's hard to hear, but it's true. So in the meantime, Heavenly Father does what He can with us and tries to work with us the best that He can. When we're insecure and immature, Heavenly Father blesses us still with blessings, but only to the limit that we allow Him to. Even if we have special feelings in our heart that He can do more for us, sometimes we're just too scared. So at this time, when he was born, when Jacob was born, we were without going to church. We were without praying to God. We had no security, no foundation in our lives like the LDS Church gives people, a strong foundation for family and love and safety in life. We didn't have that, so we were being tossed to and fro with every doctrine that was out there. And of course, it's very inviting and it's very enticing because you're not having to live a life of security and peace. You're able to do whatever you want and not be held accountable for it. Well, Barron, of course, appreciated this because he wanted to do drugs and alcohol and be into sexual immorality. And this afforded him that. I quite often and quite a bit fought him on this. I would beg him not to bring alcohol in the home. I would beg him not to smoke marijuana or take drugs. And at first he did very little and very much behind my back, but then he did more and more in California behind my back, and I had no idea. And my friend Lori Pinckney, the one who had been an LDS convert, so she knew more about the world than I did, and she knew hints and clues of things that were worldly. She tried to warn me about Barron, and she told me a lot of things about him. And these are the things that she told me. I'm actually looking at my time right now in my video, and I have to probably go ahead and close out on this video, and I'll make a part 3, and you can look for part 3. I'll make it a private message. So let me click this off.